Today I will tell you a story that happened to a forester living in the forest near my village. Mikulich had been a forester for many years. He lived in an old wooden house that stood on the edge of a dense old forest. The house was simple but cozy, creaky floorboards, a stove with cracked tiles, and shelves lined with old shabby books about plants and animals. Mikulich loved nature since childhood and always found solace in the silence of the forest. He knew every path, every tree, and could determine by the sound what kind of animal ran past. Every morning he went out into the forest with his old shabby backpack in the backpack. He always carried a full set of tools. His job was to take care of the forest. He cut down dry trees, cleared paths, and checked that there were no poachers. Towards evening he returned home, lit a fire in the stove, cooked a modest dinner, and wrote down in his diary everything that had happened during the day. But recently, strange things had begun to happen in the forest. Mikulich noticed that branches on the trees were breaking for no apparent reason, and animal tracks were disappearing abruptly on the flat ground, as if they had somehow dissolved in the air. Birds suddenly fell silent, and an oppressive, gloomy silence came in their place. One day, returning along an old path late in the evening, he felt a strange sensation as if someone was closely watching him. A slight shudder ran through his body. He turned around but only saw the dark silhouettes of old trees. Suddenly he heard a quiet laugh. It was not natural, not like a human one. The laughter became louder and louder until it turned into a blood-chilling howl that was frightening to the point of trembling. He was paralyzed with fear and could not move. He could only run his eyes trying to see something. He quickened his heavy steps, and a tall figure appeared from behind the trees. The creature was terrifying. Its skin resembled the bark of an old tree, and its eyes glowed with a greenish light, and its fingers, long and bony, slowly reached out towards him. The creature moved unexpectedly quickly, smoothly gliding between the trees. Mikulich rushed to his little house in horror and slammed the wooden door, locking it with a bolt. He heard something unknown scratching outside, muttering something in an unintelligible language. The trees around the house rustled as if a hurricane had hit them, although the wind was quiet and barely noticeable. In a panic, Mikulich grabbed an old, rusty, worn-out axe, which he usually used to chop down trees, when suddenly he noticed that something was standing by the window and looking straight at him. They looked at each other for what seemed like forever, when suddenly the creature began to hammer at the window, and one of them cracked. The forester, holding the axe tighter, froze in anticipation of the unknown entity sticking its bony hand out. The forester grabbed a large burning log from the stove, and when the creature stuck its hand out, he hit it with all his might. Something howled so loudly that its echo spread throughout the forest. Mikulich realized that this creature was afraid of fire. He made the fire in the stove stronger and set fire to several rags, making torches from them. When Leshy tried to break through inside again, Mikulich waved the fire with fury, driving it away. After another blow, the creature began to retreat, making a terrifying, strange wheezing sound, and disappeared into the darkness of the old forest. The next morning, the forester examined the forest and saw that the branches were broken, the grass was trampled, and around the house there were scraps of bark, as if the entity he had met really existed, and he had not imagined it. Ivan knew that this creature had not left forever. From then on, the forester never left the house without a torch and an axe. He no longer felt like the master of the forest, but only its temporary guest. Mikulich continued to live in the house, but every rustle outside the window made him shudder, and at night he heard a quiet whisper coming from the forest. "I'll be back.